A desert planet with twin suns.
Why do I sense we've picked up another pathetic life form?
Use my knowledge. Much to learn. You still have.
Welcome back to Twin Sun Talks, folks. I'm your host, Jonah Liu. Thank you so much for listening, and welcome back to this month's edition of The Ability to Speak Does Not Make You Intelligent.
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent.
On this month, we have Mr. Jack Pittman back on the podcast. Jack, how you doing?
Doing great. Happy to be back on.
Happy to have you. And then on for the first time, we have Clayton Morris. Clayton, how you doing?
Doing good. How are y'all?
Doing well. Happy to have you on. So since this is your first time on, Clayton, I'm going to ask that you give a quick profile of yourself, which I do for every time I have a new guest on. So if you would give me your favorite movie, your favorite character, favorite TV show, if you could have a lightsaber, what color would it be?
Cool. Favorite movie, Empire Strikes Back. Favorite character, I'm going with Kylo Ren.
Strong.
Are we doing TV show next?
Yes.
TV show. I'm going to go, if we're doing the cartoons too, I'm going for Clone Wars. And then
Excellent.
lightsaber color, I'm going to go with green. Green's always been the coolest to me.
Strong. Dude, having Kylo as a favorite character is pretty ballsy. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, you know what? That mostly falls down to Adam Driver. I love Adam Driver as a character. I think he was done slightly dirty in episode 9.
Yeah.
But besides that, everything I saw from him before, I think that regardless of what you think about those movies and what I think about those movies, I thought that he was the one to consistently put those movies on his back. And so I think that alone kind of warrants his favorite character, my favorite character of him. But besides that, I thought his relationship with his dad was really interesting. Him as a character who was manipulated from, a kid essentially into what he is now. It's a parallel to Anakin, but I think it was handled in a way that made him his own character. So I know it's a ballsy choice, but I'm sticking with that.
Hey man, I respect it. I was just curious because I don't think I've ever had someone say a character from the sequels was their favorite character. So I respect it though, and because Kylo's probably my favorite character from the sequels.
Mm-hmm.
And I completely agree that he was done very dirty. I think that he should have been the one to survive instead of Rey in episode 9. But that's a little off topic. Oh, what were you saying, Jack?
I was just thinking back on the Adam Driver Kylo Ren SNL skit. Do you know what I'm talking about?
It's stuff like that. But I can't use stuff like that to explain why he's my favorite. But like at the same time, it definitely plays into it.
Are y'all talking about the undercover boss?
Undercover boss.
It's absolutely fantastic. I mean, hey, that I think that's a great justification for having him be your favorite character. But anyways, I appreciate that. Thank you for that, Clayton. Without further ado, let's dive into I Have Spoken.
I have spoken.
Alrighty, so we're going to be reviewing a couple different things today. So first off, we're going to be talking about our thoughts on the Skywalker Saga video game. Next we'll talk about our thoughts on the Book of Boba with some time to reflect on the show for a couple months now. So, but yeah, have y'all been playing Skywalker Saga? What do y'all think so far?
So when I bought it, I was ripping it for like days on end. I probably logged, I can't even count how many hours, but I immediately played all the movies.
Yes, sir.
And that was awesome. Like the levels are just so fun, and they're similar enough to the old games to have that like nostalgia for me. Yeah. But then also super fresh and genuinely, I don't want to say thought-provoking because it's a Lego game. Like the levels are easy. But I don't know, man. It was just a blast. But since then, I've been going through the different, I don't know, I forgot what they're called, but like the side quests to unlock all the characters. Yeah. And at first I was having a lot of fun with them, but I don't know. It's kind of gotten repetitive and a little bit boring. Yeah. I don't know if y'all have like started the side quest, but I just hate the one, the side quest where it's like, oh, you have to go retrieve this object from this planet and then fly it back. And then you've got to go to another planet now. And it's just like finding things. And I don't know.
No, that's very fair. No, I agree. I can talk about that. But Clayton, do you have anything you want to say?
Well, I was gonna say it's kind of disappointing you say that, Jack, because I'm not done with all the movies yet, but I have heard everything outside of the movies is where the game really shines. So if you're not really enjoying that a lot, ooh. But I will say about the game itself, it came out, or when I started playing it, I was just right in the middle of Elden Ring, so it was hard for me to jump back and forth between the two games, and I love both of them. Uh, but Elden Ring, as I got further in that game, I'm like, this like I can't lose my focus. I'm gonna start getting bad again. I was just getting the groove in that. But even though I haven't finished Lego Star Wars, I agree with Jack though. It's a breath of fresh air. I mean, they completely revamped the gameplay. There's a couple things I think gets super repetitive within the stories. One specific thing that comes to mind when I say repetitive, every time you use R2 to unlock something, you have to do that spin. You know what I'm talking about? That little
Yes.
Yeah.
spin. It's not
Yeah.
a puzzle. I'm like, if it was different every time, if you had to use your brain to do it, I know it's a game for kids, but it's like, at some point, it just gets annoying. I'm like, please just do it like the old Lego games where I just use R2, he unlocks something, I go
Yeah.
into a place. But no, besides that, I mean, that's seriously the one thing I could think of. I think everything else from how they've revamped it to more of a traditional third person, shooter at times when you have
Hmm.
characters with lasers or you have Jedi characters and you can actually pull off combos. That's
Yep.
awesome.
Most definitely. Yeah, no. And I honestly at first I really liked the R2D2 thing. So it was kind of like it was like, oh cool, like that felt pretty immersive. But I completely agree. Once you're on like your third movie and you're still having to do that, then it's like, okay, like just get me through this door and let me continue. But Jack, I actually I very much agree with you, and it's pretty unfortunate because I finished the movies first pretty quickly within like the first week of having the game, and I had to kind of take a break because I wanted to focus on school, finishing out the year strong. But I kind of came back and did a few of the side quests, and it was really fun initially, especially getting to unlock new characters. But I completely agree. They get to be kind of the same, and I keep accidentally completing missions without actually like knowing what they are. Like I just find kyber bricks, and then they
Yeah.
like I don't even know. Like it's like I apparently you don't even need to be given these missions to get them. But like my favorite part of the game, so like that I've just been having a lot of fun with, has been like the space battle aspect of it, where I just travel to
Yes.
random planets and then join the space battles or fight the capital ships and stuff like that. And that's been where I've been finding the most enjoyment out of it, and just kind of how I break up all of the open world aspects of it so that I don't get too burnt out on that too quickly. But how's been y'all's experience with that so far?
Well, I was gonna. Aren't the space battles awesome?
Yeah.
Like that caught me
Yeah.
so off guard at first. I mean, I think it's when the game first starts and you're playing Phantom Menace, but it lets you actually control the ship
Mm-hmm.
that's
Yeah.
supposed to be the ambassador ship, and I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa! They actually have some in depth, space flight. Let's hope there's some combat. And then there was. I was like, this feels like I'm playing Battlefront. That was
Yeah.
cool.
Exactly. It's really fun. It's
I
really
felt that
fun.
way too. Um, yeah, but the space battles have definitely been my favorite open world part of the game, and it's super satisfying when you like complete. This has only happened one or two times, but I've completed some like space mission on accident, and then I just unlock a character. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. No, it's super fun. And my favorite of the battles, have you fought any capital ships yet, Jack?
Okay, I was going to ask you about that. I have not. I don't even know. Like, I didn't even realize that that was a part of the game.
Okay, so
Wait,
if you
what was the
spend
question?
have you fought any capital ships like outside of planets and stuff?
Okay, no.
Okay, so this is a super fun thing. So they're like, depending on what planet you're outside of, if it's like a planet from the prequels, original trilogy, or sequels, you could have a different capital ship that comes out and you have to fight it. And if it's the first time you fight it, then you have to like overtake it. Anytime after that, you're just trying to like dismantle it. But you could either fight a Trade Federation battleship, a Super Star Destroyer, or a First Order Star Destroyer, and essentially like you just have to take it down yourself. And then once you do, if it's the first time, you have to go inside of it and like take out everybody inside, and complete like a little mission, and then you unlock it to be purchased. But they just, I don't really know how you get them to show up, but you just kind of I spent a lot of time up in that like the open space area outside of planets just trying to get the Kyber comet, get the Stud comet, get like any characters that I need, fight a space battle or two, and then one tends to show up more often than not. So I don't really know how you can make that happen more intentionally, but that's been my favorite part about doing it. Just kind of taking down a Star Destroyer single handedly is a pretty satisfying feeling. But yeah.
That
So
sounds cool. Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
No, you. I was just gonna say I was watching someone else play, and they it looked like they were able to fly around the Death Star. So maybe that's
Yeah.
what they did.
The Death
I'm
Star is
assuming.
one that you can unlock, so it's not one that you can like that just shows up. But I think
Okay.
that I saw that somewhere, but I didn't have like I was in the middle of another mission. It was on Endor, I think. You can unlock the second Death Star. But yeah, those are all you can buy them for however many. I think it's like 5 million studs a piece.
Okay. I was
but yeah.
thinking because if the capital ships just fly into where you are, that how cool it'd be if the Death Star just flow into your open space
Yeah.
area and you have to just fight it again, take it over.
That'd be really dope. I don't know if that's
That'd
the
be sick.
case. But yeah, that'd be really sick. Jack, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, yeah, I'm sure, like you just said, all of these capital ships are super expensive, and just if you are just now starting the game, any of the listeners, it is worth it, in my opinion, after you complete all the movies, to just grind it out, bite the bullet, and get fully stud multiplied out.
Yes, sir. I completely agree. And I was about to say that. Because yeah, are you maxed out?
I'm maxed out, yeah.
Yeah, so am I. And I went from like I don't know, like I'd used up all of my funds to buy that last multiplier because it cost like 384 million studs, and then I was at like over a billion within like the next mission that I played. So so like it's pretty awesome. And Jack, one thing I forgot to say, if you're bored, I don't know, have you already 100%ed all the levels or
No, I haven't. So I thought in my head I was like, okay, I'm gonna go and unlock all the characters first.
yeah,
And then I just got kind of bored with that, and I've been playing other games since.
that's fair. But I would recommend like how I like split up doing all the open world stuff just to kind of keep it a little fresh. Just like sprinkle in a couple story levels and do like free play. Try to get all the mini kits. Try to get all the true Jedis and stuff like that, and then fight a couple space battles. Then go back to a planet and try to unlock some characters there. So I'd recommend that if you're getting kind of bored of the game. But at the same time, I can completely understand why, because the open world concept is really, really cool. I think it would be way more enjoyable if they still had the customizable character feature. Just because then you can like, it's you like walking around all these planets and you can go to like Coruscant if you want to and stuff like that. I think that would make it a lot more interesting, but it is what it is.
I will say I was super disappointed when I Googled, can you make a customizable character in this game? Because I mean, I don't want to say that was the best part of the classic Lego games, but it was definitely a fun part.
No,
So
yeah, it's awesome.
maybe they'll save it for a paid DLC down the line.
I know. That'd be super cool. And that's another thing.
Yeah.
Do y'all have the DLCs or have y'all
Yeah.
just played the game straight up? Yeah.
I do
Same here.
not, but I'm thinking if I finish the movies and get bored, I'll decide whether it's worth it to shell out the money.
That's fair. I just got the deluxe edition whenever it first came out, so they've been rolling in since I've started playing. But I will say my favorite characters to play have been Ahsoka. Have you played with Ahsoka yet, Jack? I know you haven't been playing recently, but
I have not, and I have a funny story about why I ended up getting the DLC.
okay.
And to answer that question, my character who I roam around the galaxy with almost exclusively is Mando.
Okay, yeah.
Character is
Respect.
sweet. But anyway, yeah, I initially did not buy the DLC, and then I was completing a level on Tatooine, and the level required beating the crate dragon. I don't know if you've done that.
Yeah,
side
I
quest.
have.
But I was about to do it, and I was like, okay, I mean, I've got to get the DLC and get Mando to
Of
defeat
course.
the crate dragon. I mean, there's no other
That's
way.
fair.
So
That's fair. I gotta say, I mean, yeah, that's the mission to get Yaddle, I believe.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I didn't use Mando. I used Mace Windu because he's my favorite character. I was like, I want to see Mace Windu take down a Krayt Dragon. But yeah, no, I mean, those kind of levels that are more unique are really, really fun. Like, yeah, the Krayt Dragon one, I can't think of any others. But yeah, no, most definitely. Do y'all have any final thoughts, or do y'all want to get into the bread and butter of this episode?
I just
Um,
have. Oh, sorry.
no,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I feel like I keep cutting you off. No, you go first this time.
Okay. I was just gonna ask, what is y'all's favorite movie, like as far as the game? Like, what was the most fun?
That's a great question. I think so. I'll counter your question with a smaller question: is where did y'all start? Did y'all start on the prequels or did y'all start in the originals?
I started prequels.
Same.
Okay, I started originals, and so just because I knew that I was gonna like the lightsaber combat a lot more than the blaster combat, and I figured I would get a lot more of that in the prequels, so I wanted to kind of save that and get blaster mechanics down. But episode 5, fighting Vader for the first time, kind of having that first really good bout of lightsaber combat was super, super fun for me. So I'd say episode 5 was a really well done, well-rounded level or story in general. Because I feel like a lot of the movies were kind of rushed, especially in the prequels. And like you get a lot of weird amounts of detail in the sequels. So that kind of rubbed me the wrong way as a prequels fan. But that being said, I also really liked Revenge of the Sith, but it's also my favorite movie. So I don't know about y'all.
As far as the most fun, I always thought the prequels made for more fun games. And that's
Yeah.
just because the content's within the prequels, story aside. Because, I mean, I agree. Some of you don't play a Lego game for an in-depth story, but at the same time, just certain stuff like Anakin falling to the dark side and stuff, I'm like, oh, y'all didn't want to give this a little bit more attention.
Yeah.
But I mean, the lightsaber combat, just destroying all those droids, the locations.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of things about the prequels are very fun, so I would say I had the most fun with episode 3.
What about you, Jack?
So, like you, Jono, Revenge of the Sith is my favorite movie, and
Yes,
I went into that movie super excited. I thought episode 3 was a little bit rushed in the game, which
Yeah.
was pretty disappointing. But and I thought that about all the prequels. I think of the prequels, episode 2 was the most fun.
Yeah,
But
I would agree.
after playing through the prequels, I went into episode 4 and was blown away. I think
Oh, yeah.
episode 4 is the most fun movie in the game.
It was really good, and it has a good pace to it. It's
Mhm.
got like good because you start out on the Tantive 4, which is very reminiscent of like the complete saga game. But then you also have fun levels that are kind of new to the game, like whenever you're trying to get the Millennium Falcon up and running, and you're having to fight stormtroopers and do all the tasks and stuff. So, yeah, man, completely agree. I think that it's really, really fun. But another cool thing, I really like that the characters in the prequels were voiced by their Clone Wars counterparts.
Mhm.
Y'all noticed that? That was super cool to me. I thought
I'm a
that was
huge
really
fan of that.
Yes, sir. Yeah, no,
I mean,
that was
the
awesome.
way they were doing Lego games, I know because they did this for Lego Force Awakens, they would just use sound bites from the movie mostly. I think that if they
Yeah,
needed it, they would fill it in with voice actors, but it always came off as a little bit clunky to me. So, I
yeah,
mean, I don't know, just having like Matt Lantern, them doing Anakin, just having original voice lines, it kind of added to the jokes too. So I was
exactly.
like, they can
Yeah,
say, they can add new lines to the game. So that
most
was
definitely.
that was refreshing to me.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And yeah, I was a little skeptical about having them have like actual voices, just because I haven't played any games past. Um, well, I guess I played the Clone Wars Lego Star Wars game, but I also like the
Great
one I'm
game.
most familiar with. Yeah, it is a great game. The one that I'm most familiar with is the complete saga where there's no dialogue. So I was like, oh man, I figure I would just flip on mumble mode, but I think that they did a really good job with all the voice acting. So I think that it really adds to the game.
So now I actually have one more thought. Yeah,
Yeah, go
I
for it.
think that
All
they
good.
really killed it with little details like that. And
Mhm.
another example is so if you leave Anakin Skywalker idle, his lightsaber will turn red, and then he'll like kind of shake it, and then it'll turn back blue.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Like little details like that are so fun. And yeah, they're like unique lines of dialogue for like certain characters. Like if you have like Anakin and Mace Windu together, Anakin will like ask for the rank of master, and Mace Windu will just say like no, and stuff like that. It's like just funny stuff like that where it's just like they put a lot of thought into this game, and it's really fun to see. And so yeah, no, completely agree. Any final thoughts, or do y'all want to go into Boba?
I think I'm good.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Good. Alrighty. Well, who wants to start? Because I know Book of Boba finished airing back in February. I followed every single episode as it came out on this podcast, but I haven't done too much reflection of it after the fact, where like I've kind of taken some time to think about it, marinate with it, really give it some in-depth like analysis, having been with it for a while. So what are y'all's like just like general impressions of the show being this removed from it, and then we can go into a little more in-depth conversation.
General impression, disappointing. But I will say, to start off, Book of Boba Fett, thinking about that title and when that title was first released, doesn't that sort of imply we're getting a more anthology type series, or something along the lines of, okay, Book of Boba Fett, maybe this is going to be, points throughout his life that we're going to dissect. So we have a mission from him that takes place in the original trilogy, or,
Yeah.
something that could have just been a little bit more interesting than what they went for, because
Yeah.
I think another reason they could have done that, and that might have been the better choice, Tamara Morrison is getting on there with age, but he's trying to portray someone who's 20 years his junior. So maybe
Yeah.
if they kept him as the voice of Boba while having someone else in the suit, might have been more believable for me. And I thought
Yeah.
that might be a hot take, because if you have the chance to have him back in live action, why would you not use him? But I mean, the more I think about the show, the more I think that could have been awesome.
It could have been. And I actually hadn't thought about it like that. That's actually really cool. I have a different interpretation of the Book of Boba Fett. But I'll speak to your point first. I think that that's really cool, and I think that you could have the best of both worlds, because they already played around with flashbacks, right? And so you could have him healing in the Bacta tank, and have him reminiscing not just on like how he escaped from the Sarlacc and all that stuff, but have him reminiscing on old missions, stuff like that, like you were saying. Have that kind of interspersed with current stuff, so you can still have Tamora Morrison in the flesh being cool in real life, but actually have him be cool, not like in the show. But I completely agree. I think that it was a missed opportunity to kind of flesh out Boba's lore a little bit more on screen, because he has a lot of lore in comics and books and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I completely agree, and I think that that's a fantastic point. I have never thought about it like that. Jack, what are your initial impressions?
I have a couple thoughts about that. Yeah. So one, I think that they were really going for, we're gonna really get to know Boba as like a character outside of his cool combat or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't think that what they did really accomplished that, and in a lot of ways, it just destroyed Boba's character for me.
Yeah.
And I think that standalone missions, like we were talking about over text, like season 1 of Mandalorian, would have actually it would have actually accomplished a lot more character development for Boba.
Yeah.
And then I actually just thought of this. Yeah, I thought that he looked a little bit too old to be Boba. But do y'all think that him being in the Bacta tank and healing and whatnot and getting so injured was almost like meant to explain away why he looked so old?
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
think so.
I think that that's probably what they were going for. I mean, did it work? I guess that'd be a separate question. I don't think it worked, but I think that's probably what they went for.
I would agree. I think that that's what it was. But
I mean, that's believable to me. Like, he got so injured and he like looks older. I don't think that that's unbelievable.
no, I agree, and I think that like between like if you take into account how much Obi-Wan ages on Tatooine, having been exposed to the suns and all that. And obviously that's just an explanation for why he looks like Ewan McGregor and then 19 years later looks like Alec Guinness. But the explanation they gave is like there are two suns, you age twice as fast, yada, yada, yada. So if he was with the Tuscans for a few years, just out in the sun with nothing but a hood, and plus the Sarlacc, you could kind of extrapolate that he would look, but I mean, that doesn't necessarily explain weight gain super well. But like, as far as like physical appearance, but at the same time, I love Tamora Morrison. That wasn't a huge, like, that didn't detract too much from it for me. But Jack, did you have something else you want to say?
Yeah, it just makes me laugh because now are we getting to the point where if we have an old actor, just throw him on Tatooine because we have aging plot armor.
Exactly. Yeah, no, 100%. It's like, hey, just let him spend a couple years on Tatooine. They'll look the part eventually. But my interpretation of the Book of Boba Fett was, I was really hopeful that it would be like a hit list where it's like people that have wronged him that he's like checking off as he goes. So I would figure it would be people like Cad Bane maybe, or like just other people that we haven't necessarily seen on screen. And I was hoping that it would culminate in him having like an altercation with Mace Windu. But because, you know, that they kind of started that storyline with him trying to get revenge in the Clone Wars. And I think that, and I also, it's just wishful thinking for me to have Windu back on screen, just because I think he's a fantastic character. And I think that there's a very good chance that he could have survived the fight with Sidious. But yeah, what are y'all's thoughts on that?
That's an interesting take. I hadn't thought about that before, but now that you put it that way, would that not have given fans more of what they want from Boba Fett? Because I don't know about you, I wasn't really going into a Boba Fett show going, oh man, I really hope they give him a redemption arc. You know,
Exactly. No.
You don't. Boba Fett, he's just a hunter. You know, he's gonna go out there and he's using his bounty hunting skills, and he's gonna travel around planets, and that's kind of just what I wanted to see. I just wanted to see just one bad dude going around the galaxy. Man, you know, the more we talk about this,
I know
it's just a rabbit hole of disappointment.
I know, man. Jack?
So with that being said, do you think that they did too much with Boba's character? Like essentially they tried too hard to develop him into something?
I don't think that they thought hard enough about it. I think that they just kind of had something in their minds and they were like, okay, let's try to make him like a nice guy. It's almost like, I want Boba to be like Mando is. Like, Mando's awesome. Or like how he was in The Mandalorian Season 2. Any of that. It's like he's a completely different character in his own show. He was really ruthless, really cool in Mando Season 2 whenever he first comes in. And then he's just kind of like a nice guy, like ruling with respect. I mean, like he murks Bib Fortuna, just comes up and shoots him point blank. And then he's like, oh no, but I want to rule with respect. I don't want to make people afraid and stuff like that. It's like, well, I mean, you just came in and murdered the previous ruler without much remorse. So I mean, like, I don't know. But I think that they didn't think about the fact that it would have been really interesting to see kind of a nuanced progression, if that's what they were going for like having Boba grow into this more respectful, kind of well-rounded individual that can actually rule and stuff. I think that it would have been a lot more interesting to see him kind of rule with fear as Jabba did for a while, and then be like, hey, this isn't really cool. Because you see him as a kid in like the Clone Wars and stuff. You see him, he's a kid who he cares about people. He doesn't really want to hurt people that haven't wronged him. And he's ruthless. He's a very like cunning individual because he has all these really ruthless mentors, and Aurra Sing, Cad Bane, even his father, who's probably the most respectful of those characters. But I think it would have been a lot more interesting to see how him seeing how his actions affected other people and kind of pivoting because of that, but still following into those old patterns every once in a while, because I mean, that's who he has been for so long. I think that would have been a much more interesting story than just having him be like Dad Bod Boba lounging around, letting the Vespa people, the Power Rangers, just do everything for him. I think that would have been a lot more interesting.
So I agree.
I have something directly related to that. So Jonah, I was actually hoping for the opposite. So you said you were hoping to see him start ruthless and then form into what he was throughout the
Yeah.
whole season. So for me, it makes sense to me that he has spent time with the Tuscans and has become like a more respectful person.
Yeah.
And as I was going through the season, everybody was obviously saying, "Oh, Boba is too soft, whatever."
Mhm.
And throughout the whole season, I was like, "Okay, I get that, but I'm okay with it right now because I really think that at some point, either something's going to happen or whatever, and there's going to be a shift in his character, and he's going to be back to like bad Boba."
Mhm.
And I was just waiting on it and waiting on it, and it never happened.
Yeah.
Ooh.
No, I agree, and I wouldn't necessarily say that that's what I like. What I just said is what I hoped would happen because I was also hoping for that too, Jack. I that kept saying that on my podcast. I'm like, I think we're 1 week away from Boba just snapping and going insane on everybody, and it never
Exactly.
happened. I was just saying like if they were going with that redemptive story arc, kind of like what Clayton was saying, I think that having it be gradual and have him really struggle with it and be like, I'm used to doing things a certain way. I need to like really be intentional about learning how to do this. I think that it would have been better to see that happen gradually and have him, like you said, like either start out trying to do that and then just fail at it, or start out just bad at it and kind of get better while he's falling back into old habits of being really ruthless and stuff. But
I think
Clayton, what do you go for it? Sorry,
this is
whoever
super
wants
short.
to go.
This is super short. I think the worst moment for Boba characterization in the entire show is I think this was the last episode where they were like holed up and whatever, and Boba's like, okay, we're gonna go back to the palace. And the Power Ranger was like, oh no, like we're gonna stay here. And there's a slight pause, and Boba's just like, okay, like we're
Yeah,
staying.
exactly. No, it's so ridiculous. It's like, no, put her in her place, man. He's like, okay, if you want to die, then stay here. I'm gonna take the fight away from the civilian population. Anyways,
It's
yeah,
well, it's interesting what y'all are saying about, Boba's arc because I think the show and the writers must have been confused about what they wanted to do.
oh yeah,
Because it's like, do we want Boba to be the nice guy? Do we want Boba to be the killer? And when that happens, it confuses the audience because we're sitting here talking about it. I'm like, I don't know what they were going for,
yeah,
The
yeah,
show ends with sending his assassin out to kill the rival gang lords, but like
exactly.
we just showed Boba becoming a nice guy, ruling with respect. I'm like, what? What do you guys want? I'm like,
Yeah,
I don't know. It just came off as just confusing, conflicting story ideas. Uh, I think that I really think that even though I would have rathered more traditional Boba Fett action, having him be a bounty hunter, the
yeah,
idea of him being, the ruler of this criminal underworld or just a gang lord in general, I think that's cool. That's
yeah,
awesome. Like, there's a
most
way that you
definitely.
could have done that that would have been engaging for the audience. You probably could have done something along the lines of have him travel to different planets trying to recruit different people into his new criminal organization. You don't have to have it
Yeah.
just confined to Tatooine, which, God, we can talk about that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, hindsight's 2020 with the show. I'm sure the writers are probably thinking the same thing based on the fans' reactions, but
No, I
that's just my
agree.
2 cents.
The good news is it did perform well. So I'm assuming we haven't gotten official confirmation of a season 2, but I'm assuming there will be one. And I hope that well the other weird thing is I completely agree that he should have been out recruiting people to like kind of bolster his reputation and kind of help people take him a little more seriously, but they end on a note of like I don't think I want to do this anymore. So it's like, okay, well what have we been doing this entire time? Like it's like what has this all been about then? It's like I don't even know, but I think it would have been awesome because he in the episode where it's like the last of the flashbacks, whenever he finally meets up with Fennec on Tatooine, and they like go and steal Slave One or the fire spray, back, and he talks about how like he wants to essentially create an environment where bounty hunters can be well respected and they won't be working for people that don't value their lives and stuff like that. I thought that that meant that he was literally going to start like essentially a new bounty hunters guild where he's at the top and he like takes on a bunch of bounty hunters, kind of like his old he was going to have like a bounty hunter group kind of like in the Clone Wars called the Crate's Claw. Have something like that. And have him bring in like Bosk and Embo and Dengar and Mando and all these different characters and have them kind of working under him. That would have been super cool, in my opinion. But I don't
And
know.
with that, we could have been introduced to a new character who maybe
Exactly.
down the road has his own show, like a new cool bounty hunter.
Yeah.
And also,
Yeah.
we don't know a ton about, say, like Bosk or Dengar.
No.
Like, it would be so cool to develop those characters.
I agree.
But another thing, Clayton, you mentioned how the assassin goes in at the end and kills the rival gang member. So I thought that should have been Boba doing that.
Yeah.
And if he had gone in and like Boba had been cool that whole final episode. If he had gone in and just murked the rival gang members, that would have done a ton for me in saying like, okay, Boba's back.
Yeah.
Like that could have
Yeah.
been that shift for me.
Exactly. Same.
The more I think about it, I think maybe just the idea that Boba was the one that sent Finnick out there to do that might be enough for me. I think like let's say Boba did do that, would that not just add to the confusion of just like, oh my god, okay, we just had a scene of him, bantering with the townspeople, all of him and his new crew just I don't know, just having a good time out in the city, Boba Fett like tossing the fruit with them,
Yeah.
and then having him just go and just murk all these people. I don't know if that would have really worked very well. But I mean, it would have been cool,
The way that it ends, yeah, it's like a sitcom where like
Yeah.
it's like, oh ha ha ha, like oh Chrysanthemum, like it's like, and then they just pan up to the sky. It's like, what is this?
Yeah, no,
It's ridiculous.
it was weird. I do have a thought, but I don't want to pivot just yet in case y'all have more things about this.
Go for
I
it.
have one more thing.
Oh, go.
Just the end of Boba gives me the same vibes as have y'all seen like that Mando parody video where it's like at the end the guy's like, oh no, Baby Yoda drank all the milk.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. It's like, guess we have to go stop off on this new planet. It's like, yeah, no, it's awesome.
But at the end of the day, I think that Boba's character arc is a lot like Tiger Woods. Like Tiger Woods has started off his golf career as like some ruthless killer, and then now he's like joking like with all the other tour players and like this happy go lucky guy. Like it's just like that. I mean,
Yeah.
and in both cases, I just want to. I just need them to go back to being ruthless, and we're not going to get it from either of them, in my opinion.
To be fair, with Tiger, I feel like it's a little more understandable than with Boba. I mean, both of them have had near-death experiences recently, but I mean, it's like, I don't know. I feel like Tiger's just like, he's kind of over that hump. He's like, I think he kind of understands like, I'm not going to necessarily be competing at that level, so I might as well just have fun out here because he's still performing very well, especially all things considered. So, but I mean, Boba, I don't feel like we've been given much reason for why.
That's true. Tiger has way more character development.
Exactly. Exactly. But Clayton, what did you want to say?
Well, so I mean, this is more of like an extension from Mandalorian season 2, and it carried over to Book of Boba Fett. And I was slightly disappointed by that. Not slightly. I'm actually majorly disappointed for what it means for his character down the line. So they introduced Luke Skywalker at the end of Mandalorian season 2.
Yes.
He's coming in. He's got the hood on, so you don't know, like, oh, did they recast him? Like, how do they do this? But it's Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
Takes off the hood, and I mean, I'm sure it was the same for you guys when you watched that. You're just like, what? It's like Luke. It's Luke.
Mm-hmm.
The more you look at it, the more you think about it. You're like, like I don't. You're kind of left feeling a little like weird. You're like, that's like I know that's Luke, but it wasn't Luke.
Yeah.
And he just stood out with the CGI, and then he comes on in Book of Boba Fett looking better. It's like they've improved the CGI. The voice still sounds a little weird, but it's like, okay, I guess I can get more behind this, but it's still not there, which kind of just begs the question, why are they trying so hard for CGI Luke? They've had major characters in Star Wars, Han Solo, you've had Obi-Wan, Lando, who've all been recasted for modern movies, and it's like, we understand, right?
Yeah.
It's like if you had a different character, or I'm sorry, actor come in and be Luke, I think that you could trust that the audience would get that this is Luke. And I think they're not doing that because they want that ooh and awe factor of like, holy crap, like this is like the real Luke. But it's off-putting, and it just seems like his role from here on out in live action shows at least is going to be limited because
Yeah.
now they have to always figure out a way to do that and always try to improve it, because it seems like every time that they've tried to do it, new criticisms are leveled at it.
Hmm.
And I'm just like, guys, just please just hire an actor.
Yeah.
It's like I'm sure there's someone that you could find that is close enough and looks to him, sounds like him, has his personality, but
S- s- Yeah.
that's just my
Sebastian Stan from Marvel, like
yep.
Bucky Barnes.
Well, I
Like,
mean,
have you also?
Mark Hamill's also said. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know if he's directly said it, but I mean, he's definitely he's mentioned it before. It's like I know that he'd be on board for it. So
Yeah. And he's also like tweeted like, "Oh yeah, I guess you're my son now." It's like because like you see like the little Photoshop of them next to each other. It's like they look really similar. Put a blonde wig on him. I mean,
hmm
he looks like Mark Hamill,
he can,
and he's
and
a
he
good actor.
yeah, he's a good actor. I was gonna say even if he doesn't look, he's not like a 1-to-1 to Mark Hamill. That's as if any of the actors so far who have been recasted
I mean, yeah,
have been a
no,
1-to-1. So I mean, that's just something that kind of frustrates me a bit because I want Luke Skywalker to get play in shows like Ahsoka, and I'm sure he
yeah,
will, but I just don't want these awkward, we have to film him from different angles when he speaks because the CGI is not there.
yeah. No, I agree. Jack, what do you have to say about that?
Okay, Clayton, I'm glad you said that because I think we're about to start getting into the banter we talked about because I totally disagree completely.
Oh
So
boy.
I think that one with recasting Han Solo and Lando, that's totally different because they have their own standalone movie, and I feel like that those two actors are probably not going to show up in Star Wars again. Personally,
But I think they recast them with the hopes that they would show up again.
I
I
would
mean, there
agree.
was rumors of
Yeah.
contracts being signed for multiple movies.
There's also a Lando show that got announced a couple years ago, which we haven't gotten any
oh,
news
I
on.
did
But
forget about that. Okay,
yeah,
well then, never mind. But still, I have no problem with Luke being CGI, and I do understand. Okay, that kind of limits his character, but also we've already gotten so much Luke develop. I mean, basically, like the original trilogy is all about Luke. Do y'all really need more Luke content with a different actor? Like
I
I don't know. I'm fine with him being CGI, and that wow factor was a huge thing for me. Like, oh my god, that's Luke. It felt
yeah,
real to me. I thought it was awesome. I have no problem with it.
yeah. I think you
Interesting.
get you go for it, Clayton.
Oh no, I mean that's kind of just it. I mean, if we're talking about like more content for Luke, I don't think we need more content. I just would like less awkward scenes with Luke. I think
Yeah,
his character deserves it.
I
I don't
think
think
that
they're
you can
awkward
have.
though.
Well, they're a little clunky sometimes, especially with the dialogue. I think visually he looks a lot better. Because like in the first one, he looks like an NPC in a video game, in my
Yeah,
opinion. Like the more you look at him, his top lip doesn't move when he talks. It's like this looks uncomfortable. But
very
in book
robotic.
exactly in the Book of Boba, I think that he's really well done. I think that they did a really good job. The dialogue was what kind of hindered them a little bit because they're literally like using AI to create his voice, which is amazing. It's incredible, but it's it doesn't quite hit right, and I think that that's fine in the role that he's filled so far in these shows, where he's like kind of like this wise teacher. But if he gets like, I'm hoping that he would get his own show with like, well, not with Grogu anymore, but kind of that whole thing of like developing the new Jedi Order, kind of learning from Force Ghosts and stuff like that. If they were to do that, I'm hoping that they recast him and like if he's in like a bigger capacity. But if he stays in these kind of smaller roles, like he has been in Mando and all that, I think it's fine to keep him as CGI. I could go either way, but I don't think it's like. I mean, there are all the ethical dilemmas of digitally rendering older actors and like repurposing them. At least Mark Hamill's still alive, um, but yeah, no, I could go either way on it. I think that y'all both make good points, but I think that it really depends on what capacity he returns in. Because I agree with you, Clayton. I don't need new Luke stuff, but like I'd like new Luke stuff. Like if they're willing to give it, like that'd be awesome.
I mean, I think with what they've introduced in the sequel trilogy, that there's things you could do with Luke that'd be really interesting to see, whether that's live action or a new animated show like Clone Wars. Give us
Yeah.
some backstory on his Jedi Temple, or anything along those lines. But can we talk about the AI voice, because that kind of comes off to me as like RIP voice actors, I guess. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm sure there's
no
someone out
kidding.
there who can do a good Mark Hamill, but if we'd rather use computers, that's go for it. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. The way I think it works is that someone's still speaking those lines. They just input it into this software that recreates whoever's voice you have.
Potentially, the way that I understood it was that they had like literally a database of everything that Mark Hamill said in all of the movies, and it's kind of
Hmm.
like almost like a Siri recreation. Oh, oops, my bad. It's almost like a Siri recreation of words, where it's like it just has all the correct sounds and syllables that they can kind of stitch together and create a sentence. Um,
I just think that's weird.
so yeah, and it could be your way. I'm not entirely sure, but as far as whenever I've heard it talked about, that was my general understanding of it,
Hmm.
which is bizarre, and it's like it's kind of scary. It's like once this does get good, it's like I mean,
Well, it's scary for multiple reasons. I mean, ethical, moral dilemmas aside, because if
yeah,
we just have a way to recreate anyone's voice who's ever spoken, you know,
yeah,
into a computer, that's kind of scary to think about. But I
most
don't know. I
definitely.
think that this just they're trying so hard. They're doing everything they can not to cast an actor in that role, and it's just, it's, come on,
And
give
hopefully
us what
that's
we
just
want.
them. Yeah, hopefully that's just them taking their time and like really trying to find the right guy. But
Maybe. I mean, that'd be
who,
cool.
who knows? Jack, I've been
Yeah.
I feel like
Okay.
I've been talking
So
over you.
I if the sequel trilogies would have been great movies, I would be more interested in seeing a Luke show where we like get to learn about his Jedi temple or whatever. But at this
Yeah,
point, I don't know. I don't really care to see that too much. Like
that's
I
fair.
don't need to learn about Kylo Ren's backstory anymore, especially now that Grogu has gone with Mando. Like
Yeah,
maybe if he had stayed with Luke and he's going to be a part of the Jedi Temple, that would have piqued my interest a little bit more.
yeah.
I don't know. I just don't think we're going to agree on this. I'm ready for new things. I don't need to learn about Luke's Jedi Temple.
I mean,
That's
I
fair.
I agree with the new things. I think that if we can just get away from this timeline meaning from episode 1 to episode 9, just get away from all the characters that we know, and you can either pivot just way in the past, Old Republic, or I mean, if you want to go way in the future, just give us new storylines. I would completely agree with that. But I mean, to your point of after what you've seen in the sequel trilogy, do you want to see more of these characters? But I would argue, hasn't that been Star Wars for a long time now? Because when the prequels came out, and people didn't like those movies, they'd probably say the same thing about a Clone Wars show. But then
Yeah,
the Clone Wars show comes out and it fleshes out all these backstories, and then people are like, "Oh crap, I want more of that."
I
So,
completely agree.
do you think that there could be something similar for the sequel trilogy?
That's a really good point, but it's a little bit different for me because I like the prequels as standalone movies, and I did before I saw the Clone Wars,
Yeah.
and so I don't know. I mean, maybe, and I think that's a really good point.
The issue with the sequels and kind of like trying to flesh them out more is that they are like narratively awful movies. Like like if you take the prequels, they have like bad writing, but the story itself is solid. Like it makes sense, it flows well. There was a plan. And what the Clone Wars does really well is it adds a lot of depth and context to a big gap in time where there was a lot of great character development. You get to see all these cool little stories that adds a lot of depth to like Anakin's turn to the dark side and his relationship with Obi-Wan, the relationship between Jedi and clones, all that sort of stuff really well. With the sequels, first of all, it all takes place within a year of itself. So there's not too much that you can do internally. As far as like leading up to it, I think that you could add some context where it's like, okay, this makes more sense why Luke is acting this way. Um, but for the most part, I think that the story is so disjointed and poorly thrown together that it would take a lot of really good. And I think that they've been trying to like kind of backpedal and provide context, and it's just been making it worse um, for a while now. So I'm not entirely sure, but I do think it's a little different. To that point, I do agree that having some context around Luke specifically would help me appreciate at least his character in maybe The Last Jedi a little bit more.
Yeah,
I think,
I'm sorry, you got it, Jack.
I think one area where we really need context, and I could use a show, is what if we got a Rose show?
Yes, sir. The Tico sisters.
I'm joking.
Well, I will say this though. I mean, even though that's what Star Wars has been doing, where it's like you have these shows, whatever, to flesh out the story fully. And this is part of the reason I really didn't like Episode 9. It seemed like that's exactly what they knew that they could do, so they just threw anything at the audience. They're like, "Oh, Palpatine's back." It's like, how do we explain it? Like, don't worry, we have a show down the line. They'll handle that. It's
Yeah.
like 10,000 Star Destroyers. Like, how did y'all make that? Like, don't worry, dude. There's a show in there that can tell
Yeah,
the audience
exactly.
everything.
Yeah.
And it's just
No.
like it's a crutch for the writers that it came off as really lazy. So, I'd really like them to try not to do that. But
No, I agree.
yeah,
Keep it contained. Don't
when you have a property as big as Star Wars and you see an opportunity to throw out a spinoff show, why not take it? I guess. But I would like them to stray away from any of these stories or any of these shows that are literally only meant to just be support for the movies. That's why I'm really excited for when I looked at the lineup for the new shows. They have that Acolyte show, which I believe that's the High Republic show of Sith in training. I'm like, that's awesome. Cool. Like,
Very
that's,
cool.
it's going to be its own thing. It's going to be what people want, new characters. More of that, please.
Yes.
So.
Most definitely.
Shows should add to Star Wars lore. Their purpose is not to support, like, they should not be required to understand the movies.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree.
Yeah, completely agree. And that being said, unless y'all have something else y'all want to touch on with that, I want to pivot to, speaking of like not understanding something because you haven't watched something, how stupid, in my opinion, it is that they wrapped up the Mandalorian storyline with Grogu within the Book of Boba Fett.
I don't like it. No, you know what? Too. I'm surprised we didn't get to that because when me and Jack spoke after that episode, that might have been just our biggest grievance with that episode. I mean, seriously, it's like we go back to Mandalorian season 2, the ending of that show, and not just the show, but that season, and how emotional that was to watch Mandalorian have to give up Grogu, to Luke because he knows it's the right thing to do. It's been his mission for 2 seasons now. And we followed him on this emotional journey, and you're like, wow, like he took off his helmet to say goodbye. Yeah. And he's grown as a character. And we're like, wow, I'm really excited to see where this takes Mando's character, because it's not that I never thought that they would reunite. I always thought that that'd be like a natural, ending maybe to the show in general, but really to take such an emotional plot point and just wrap it up, tie it in a neat little bow really fast in another show that's not Mandalorians, which I guess you could argue it partly his show since they had 2 of his episodes in there, but it doesn't sit right with me.
No, I completely agree. Jack?
And on top of that, I have a few buddies who love Mandalorian but didn't watch Book of Boba because they're not like Star Wars guys. And I'm just like, buddy, how confused are you going to be when you start Mandalorian 3?
But that's what they want. I mean, it's similar to what Marvel's doing nowadays. And I think it works for Marvel, but, maybe it doesn't work for Star Wars too, where it's like, cool, if I have to watch a show in Marvel to understand the movie, that's fine for me as a fan. And as Star Wars fans, that's going to be fine for us, I guess, because we're going to watch everything. But yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up, because as soon as you start thinking about the general audience, you're like, Disney's going for that, like, increased viewership of these shows because they want to have to be like, ooh, you don't know how Grogu got back with Mandalorian? Guess you'll have to watch our other show.
Exactly.
Guess you'll have to watch Boba Fett, resubscribe.
Exactly. And it's like, man, because I've been telling people, I'm like, okay, guys, I know that you don't really want to watch Boba because, like, you're not like, because once again, it's big Mando fans, not big. But the good thing is, those 2 episodes within the Book of Boba are so far removed from the actual Boba story that you can really watch them by themselves, and it doesn't matter too much. Like, it's like they make
I would
sense
argue it doesn't matter at all.
Yeah,
just watch those.
the end of the second one, wherever he goes with Luke and stuff, is maybe a little confusing whenever he goes to Mos Pelgo, and then Cad Bane shows up and all that stuff. But yeah, man. I mean, you can watch episodes 5 and 6 of Boba, and it's not gonna matter whether or not you watch the rest of Boba if you don't want to. But just to get that context, I think it's necessary. Well, I guess you also need to watch 8 and that, or 9, 8, 7. I don't remember with the last episode.
Just show them the scene where Grogu gets back with Mando.
Exactly, and that's the whole thing. But
I'm sure somebody on YouTube is going to make like a consolidated Book of Boba clip where it's like, this is what you need to watch to start season 3 of Mando.
Exactly, but it's so ridiculous, and they're going to have a previously on. But it's like, how confusing would that be if it's like, oh, like you said, that was an amazing moment. Whenever it was so powerful with Mando's goodbye to Grogu, it's like you couldn't have left that a little ambiguous. Like, you didn't even need to wrap it up in Boba Fett. Like, you set it up with him like having to choose between the lightsaber and the armor. You didn't have to wrap that up. You could have left that as the last thing that we see of Grogu, and then just have Boba's story wrap up, and you have Mando go off into the galaxy, and we don't really know what happens. And then you have that set up for Mando season 3. But instead, you chose to just throw them back in, and then they're together again.
Well, now you go back and rewatch the end of Mandalorian season 2, and I'm like, I don't feel any emotions. I know you two are just going to be reunited,
Exactly.
Then
Like, right
I would
away.
have to assume, not that much time has passed. And so the first episode with Mandalorian and Boba Fett, where they had it started out, first off, they had Mandalorian doing what I would love Boba Fett to do, chasing bounties. So I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, cool. But it was interesting to be like, okay, so this is what he's doing now that Grogu's gone.
Yeah.
He's reverted back to just chasing bounties, and I would have liked to see more of that in Mandalorian, to see him almost like reverse as a character, or however you're supposed to say that.
Mhm.
Just kind of take some backward steps and be like, no, he needs someone like Grogu to point him in the right direction.
Yeah.
But of
Most
course,
definitely.
I that's what they went for, I guess. But they just did it in 2 episodes, so that's
Exactly.
cool.
And those
And then
episodes
now-
would have been great as the first 2 episodes of Mando. But anyways, Jack.
Yeah.
Well, and then now it's been wrapped up so fast that I don't feel any like internal turmoil with Grogu. Like, it didn't seem like much of a choice. Like, I wanted to see him like wrestle with, oh, am I going to be a Jedi or am I going to go back to Mando?
Yeah.
I feel like I was not surprised at all when he chose Mando, because I felt like he never even really considered being a Jedi. He was like
No.
he was like a little kid being forced to play like baseball when he doesn't want to. Like,
Exactly. No, that's a great point. No, I completely agree. And I think that would have been great. Like, even if they spent like 2 or 3 episodes in Mando season 3 of Mando on his own, and Grogu trying to figure out, like, he has the shirt and the lightsaber that he's juggling between, but he's still with Luke, and we still get that perspective. That would have been really, really cool. But they just were like, oh, we need Baby Yoda merch, so let's throw him in so we can have him in the promotional material. So it's like,
and then
Where do you? Oh,
sorry,
sorry.
can I do one quick thing? And then
You got it.
now with Star Wars, everything has to be so in your face that, oh, Baby Yoda is not only choosing between Mando and being a Jedi, but like he literally has 2 tangible objects that like he has to pick between.
exactly.
That's so unnecessary.
No, I completely agree. Clayton, what were you gonna say?
Well, I was just gonna say, now that let's think long term. Where are you gonna take Grogu now? I guess it's like, if he's not front and center, you're not gonna get that sweet Baby Yoda merch. But it just seemed like they sacrificed story for. Honestly, they sacrificed story for a merchandise sale, because they want Baby Yoda front and center. Because it's like, if we have him absent for too much of the season, little kids are going to forget about him. They're not going to buy his toys.
For the normies, that's a great call. But for real fans, it's like, or not real fans, I don't want to gatekeep Star Wars fandom, but it's like, for established fans, it's like, man, you could have done so much more with that, and you could still have him in the promotional stuff if it's like a split storyline, like I said, like with part of it with Luke, part of it with Mando. So I don't know, it's a missed opportunity. But do y'all have any final thoughts, or are y'all ready to pivot a little bit?
I have one more final thought. Clayton, you brought this up. Like, where do you go with Grogu now? Genuinely, where do you go? Is he going to be Mando's sidekick now? Like, he was in seasons 1 and 2, because that's kind of lame.
Yeah.
Now
I
we've
mean,
just
that,
reverted back to Grogu kind of just being there.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it seems like now he's just going to be Mandalorian's backpack, for a good while. And also, it's the way they've set up Grogu with Yoda species. I mean, it seems like the time frame that Mandalorian's whole show is going to take place in isn't going to be enough time for Grogu to turn into someone who can even function as his own character. I mean, he still can't even speak yet. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. Like, what are they going to do with him? And it's maybe Yoda or Disney's setting him up to be the next Yoda. Fine, that'd be cool. But you just took him away from the one person that would teach him. I guess maybe now they'll reintroduce him with Rey and some further or some property further down the line. But it's just maybe they have a plan that we're just not fully grasping just yet. But they would really have to prove me wrong that this wasn't just for merchandise sales.
Yeah. No, that's one thing that I forgot to mention was I think that one of their best moves that they could do for the movies, or at least like furthering the timeline, is like have like a couple 100-year jump
Hmm.
and have Grogu be the main character, like a teenage quote unquote Grogu, or like a young adult Grogu who's like 250 years old.
Yeah, that'd be
Um,
awesome.
and have it completely removed from the Skywalker saga, have like references and stuff because he knows those people, but like have him just doing his own thing. That would be really cool. But um but yeah, no, I don't know. It does feel like they kind of dropped the ball. And now if they like send him back to Luke, that's weird because it's like
They
what do
can't.
you like? Yeah, you can at that point. So I don't know.
Well, because it would
It's
just be a back and forth that's just annoying for the audience. It's like, oh no, change my mind. I really want to be a Jedi.
exactly. It's just an emotional like yeah no. That's like
Hey,
yeah.
the,
It'd
the
be
marketing team has proved that actually I would sell better merchandise if I had a lightsaber. So I'm back.
exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. It's like test audiences have shown that. No, it's ridiculous. But okay. Final thoughts? Or are we good to just give like we're running a little over on time because I got a couple other things I want to get to, but I want to at least touch on Kenobi because when this episode's releasing, we will be exactly 1 week from the Kenobi date. So, what are y'all's like? Let's try to keep this a little short, but like hopes, thoughts, excitement, whatever. Jack, we can
Mm,
start with you or Clayton, whoever wants to start.
Go for it, Clayton.
well, I mean, I would start with a question of they've already said they're going to do this. Have Obi-Wan. If we're talking about hopes, I hope this happens. But have Obi-Wan face Vader,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm hoping that there is an actual real life interaction between the two of them, not just something that happens in their minds.
Yeah.
But I have heard, that's why I want to hear y'all talk about this, because I have heard the criticism of, well, it seems like their conversation in episode 4 implies that they haven't seen each other since Mustafar. But I would also argue that nothing they say really actually hints at that.
I
So,
agree. No, it's left pretty ambiguous. So I think that it is safe for them to fight in person. I think that they really need to do it correctly because I think that needs to feed into the emotionality of that fight in episode 4 well enough to keep like kind of preserve that moment. But I don't think that there's any issue. I would like to see that too. I think that would be sick. What about you, Jack?
Yeah, that would be awesome. But yeah, like you said, it cannot take away from their fight in episode 4.
Yeah.
Like if it's, I don't know, and I think it needs to be a really brief interaction or brief fight to not take
Yeah.
away from that. I don't know. But literally for the Kenobi show, I don't have a ton of speculation or things to say because I've just seen the trailer
Yeah.
that just came out and I've watched it like once. And so I haven't done a lot of research of like, oh, the YouTube videos where it's like, oh, like what is this in the trailer? Like the breakdowns. I want to
Yeah.
go in fresh. And so I've tried to avoid that.
I respect that. I think that's a good call. I agree, and I'm going to be having. So once again, we're recording this a week out, but like I'm going to have an episode, the episode after this, so the Monday before. So that's going to be the 23rd. I'm going to have an episode about like what to know, like the characters to know, all that stuff going into Obi-Wan Kenobi. So I'm going to have a little bit of speculation then. But I mean, overall, I just hope they do him justice because I'm a little skeptical after Book of Boba. I hope that they don't like shift him too much, but at the same time, I trust the people that are in charge. Deborah Chow, I know, is a really reputable director. I think that Filoni's been involved enough that I'm comfortable with where they're going to have Obi-Wan's character. I hope they don't try to do too much and cram too many extra characters into it. I hope that it's a Kenobi show. We don't get too much that draws focus from that. And I'm really excited. I'm just pumped. This has been something that I've been looking forward to for a while. So yeah.
Me too. I'm pumped. I'm super hopeful. I don't think they're going to mess this up. I really don't.
They better not.
I mean, I would hope not. I know that the first draft of the script, maybe it wasn't the first draft, but I know that whatever the original script was turned away because I think it was Favreau and Filoni were like, no, go bigger with it. I think that if we're having an Obi-Wan show, then maybe we should make this like the show for the fans.
Yes.
So I don't even think the idea of him fighting Vader was in that original idea. So I think that they've taken their time with this because we've all heard the rumors for years now. And so they could have made this show before, but it seems to me as if it's not something they've wanted to rush.
Yeah.
So that's giving me high hopes. But
the interesting thing about that first draft that I've heard, and it's all speculation and like word of mouth, but the concept was essentially someone looking for Obi-Wan. Like Obi-Wan was barely going to be in the show, but it was going to be like someone searching for him, kind of like it was going to be like I think someone hunting for him and someone looking for him. Like I think it was going to be Darth Maul actually hunting for Obi-Wan, and then like some other character like a Jedi survivor searching for Obi-Wan trying to like find him, and he wasn't going to come into play until like the last episode. And that's when they were like, nah, like you can't do that, especially if you got Ewan McGregor coming back. So I'm glad that they pivoted away from that if that was what they were going to go for. But yeah, y'all ready to dive into Rank of Master?
yeah. I'm ready.
Alrighty, let's dive into the Rank of Master then.
You are on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of master.
Alrighty, so if you're new to this podcast, essentially every time I have a guest on, I give them a quick 3-question quiz. They get increasingly harder the more that you take them because each time you pass a quiz, you go up in rank. You start out as youngling, then you move to Padawan, then Knight, and then Master. And so we have 2 different ranks here today. So Clayton, you've never been on the pod before. So you're a youngling. You're going to be trying to go up to Padawan. Jack, you've already gotten to Padawan. You're going to be trying to go up to Knight. I will encourage both of y'all to, if you don't know the answer to any of these questions, to kind of talk your way through your answer, give a little bit of context around stuff that you know is kind of close to this, the answer in Star Wars and stuff like that. Just give me a general idea of your Star Wars knowledge, because I know that not everybody has the same sort of Star Wars experience, Star Wars knowledge, and I want to cater to that. So Clayton, I'm going to do your quiz first. You're going to have the easiest level of quiz. I have 1 question from each trilogy just to kind of accommodate for different people that have watched different movies. And it shouldn't be too hard. I think that you'll be just fine. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So question number 1. Who is Han Solo's Wookiee co-pilot?
Chewbacca, also known
sir.
as Chewie.
Yes, sir. Correct. Fun fact, that's my dog's name. It's Chewie, short for Chewbacca. Question number 2. What important news does Padme tell Anakin when they're reunited after the Battle of Coruscant in Revenge of the Sith?
That she is pregnant.
That is correct. You're 2 for 2 going into question number 3. And question number 3 is FN-2187, also known as Finn, was a stormtrooper deserter. What was the name of the authoritarian regime from which he defected?
It was called the First Order.
That is correct. You went 3 for 3. And I think that that's pretty decisive. And I think that you have definitely earned the rank of Padawan. So how do you feel?
I feel awesome. I feel very, very, I'm sorry. I just completely had a word for it right there.
You're good.
I feel awesome. Good feeling.
Excellent, dude. Glad to hear it. Yeah, love to have you Upper rank. That's super fun. Jack, you ready for your quiz?
Ready.
All right, you're going from Padawan to Knight. Question number 1. What color of armor decals does the 212th Attack Battalion sport under the command of Obi-Wan Kenobi in Revenge of the Sith?
Orange.
That is correct. 1 for 1 going into question number 2, which is, what is another name for the sand people of Tatooine?
The Tusken Raiders.
Correct. 2 for 2. Going into your final question, and this question is, how does Han Solo acquire the Millennium Falcon?
Through a bet with Lando.
Correct. Yes. And that game is called, do you know what the name of the game? You already got the question right. But do either of you? I'll leave this open to either of you.
Can I buzz in?
Yeah.
Sabak.
It is Sabak. Correct.
See, I was thinking, I was like, it sounds something like Baccarat, I think.
Yeah, you're right.
Wait, so do y'all know anything about the Old Republic games? Because there was a card game in there called Pazak, and
Really?
I can't tell if that's supposed to be Sabak, but I don't know if it is, I kind of wish they would just have left it as Pazak, because then that sort of continuity would be a little bit more. I don't know, that'd be cooler to me.
I think Sabak already existed before that movie.
Okay.
So I'm not entirely sure, and I'm not super familiar with the Old Republic games, but I'm sure that that's like maybe an offshoot of it. I don't know. Maybe they're made by the same company. I would love for them to make a Sabak, like an actual Sabak game that you could buy, though. I think that'd be super fun. You can just like make up your own rules for it. Or actually, I think rules exist online. You can look them up. But yeah, anyways, Jack, you went 3 for 3, super strong. And I think that you've definitely decisively made it to the rank of Knight. So how do you feel?
I feel great. And I'm also just wondering, have you had people on that have achieved all the ranks yet?
My brother Jeb is the only one who has gotten to the rank of master. And so that's something that I didn't mention, is that once you're the rank of master, I'm currently hold the rank of grandmaster. I took my own special quiz back in episode 18 of this podcast, where my brother Jeb and my buddy Scott and I, they gave me the hardest questions that they could find. And so whenever you get to the rank of master, you have the option to challenge me for the rank of grandmaster. And if you do, then if you succeed, I'm not entirely sure what happens, but
I would just take over the podcast.
I guess so. Like, congratulations, here are the keys to the castle. But yeah, no. And I would encourage y'all, if y'all are interested in seeing me face off with someone, make sure you stay tuned for episode 100, because we're coming up on it quick, and who knows, something like that might happen. But anyways, do y'all have any final thoughts before I move into the more?
I don't think so.
Good. All righty. Well,
good.
Go for it, Clayton.
No, I was gonna say I'm good.
Okay, cool. Well, this wouldn't be a proper episode if I didn't leave y'all with just a little bit more. Alrighty, so today I got for y'all that Zam Wessel used a KYD-21 blaster pistol in Attack of the Clones. So a little bit of useless Star Wars knowledge there. And that's about all that I have. Clayton, Jack, I really appreciate y'all coming on. This was an awesome conversation, and had a lot of fun with y'all.
Yeah, that was a good time.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you a lot.
Of course. And yeah, hopefully I can have y'all on in the future, because I know this was some of the best, like, just back and forth, just fluid conversation that I've had with people about this stuff. So I really appreciate that. And yeah, if y'all don't already follow me on Instagram, then you can go ahead and find me at Twin Sun Talks. Been posting a lot of reels recently, which has been super fun. So go ahead and check those out. Go ahead and subscribe to us on YouTube, Twin Sun Talks Podcast. Follow us on any streaming platforms, wherever you get your podcast, Twin Sun Talks. And yeah, you've taken your first steps into a larger world. May the force be with you, and I will see y'all in the next episode. Bye, friends.